Hi, it's Bea with Crafting Daily Dose, and today I have an alternative for the August 2021 paper pumpkin called Hope Box. So this card is a type of easel card, but with an unexpected twist. So here's the front flap. You open it like this. And for this card, you're going to turn it inside out, and that front flap then becomes the base of the easel. On top here, we're showing off the beautiful die cut from the kit, and it stands up on its own for display. Now, this type of easel card was inspired by iced images and mixed up crafts, and I've got a link to their videos below. I've mostly stuck to kit components for this card, except for one piece of Bermuda Bay cardstock. I'm excited to show you how to make this card, so let's get started. I'm starting with the full sheet of Bermuda Bay cardstock, and I'm going to turn it so that the long side is along the top, and I'll cut it in half at 5.5 inches. This is my scoring blade. I'm going to push it out of the way so I can use my darker blade to cut. So that now gives me two pieces. I'm going to take one of these and turn it so that the long side is at the top. I'm going to score it at 2.25 inches. Then at 6.5 inches. And then finally, I'm going to cut it at 7.25 inches. So this time the scoring blade goes out of the way and I will cut it. And this is what our piece looks like with two score lines. One is just 3/4 inch from this right side edge. I'm going to bring in my other piece now, and I will score it at 4.25 inches. And then I'll cut it at 5 inches. So this is what the second piece looks like. There's just one score line and it's 3/4 inch from this edge. Now I will go ahead and fold these creases. So this crease is going to be a mountain fold. And then on the longer piece, this first score line is also going to be a mountain fold. And then the bottom score line is going to need to be folded in both directions. So I'll do first one way. And then turn it around and do the other way. You really want to make sure that you work this fold well in both directions. We want it to be able to easily fold both ways. Now the measurements for these two pieces are the most important because they form the structure of the card. Now for the layers that I'm using to decorate, I'm focused on pieces that came from the kit, and I'll give you those measurements. But depending on how you use the kit, you may not have the same pieces left over as I do, but you've got lots of different options for using other layers, either from the kit or maybe from your own stash. So from the kit, I'm using this amazing die cut, and I've got this panel, the Hope banner, and two of these butterflies. These are the pieces that I'm using just as is. I'm also using this panel, but I'm going to stamp on it before I lay it down. I've got one of these banners, and I've cut it so that it's 1.25 inches along this side. And then I'm going to cut up this envelope to provide some of my bigger pieces for layering. For the envelope, I'm first going to cut it open just with my snips. You can also do the initial cut with trimmers, but sometimes if you go too close to the edge, the paper may bunch up on you, so I just find it easier to do it with snips. And then I'll use the trimmer to neaten up the edges and make them square again. I'm going to start with what was the front of the envelope, and I'm going to go ahead and trim it off here. Right along where that crease is. Then I'm going to use that cut to then square it up and trim off this bottom edge. Now I want to cut it so that it's 5 inches across. And then I want this dimension to be 3 3/4 inches. And you can see that I was turning it in different directions and sometimes cutting upside down, just because I want to make sure that the edge that I'm laying up against the top is nice and straight. That way I know that my corners are going to be square. So here's the back of the envelope. I'll neaten up this bottom edge here. So for this one, since the pattern is on this side, I want to be trimming closer to the right than to the left, but I still want to make sure that I'm getting all of this flap off. I've put my newly cut edge against the top so that I know that it's nice and straight. I check and see, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn this. I want it to be 5 inches across total. And I want this dimension to be 3 1/4. Now this is the last piece. This was the flap of the envelope. And for this, there's a nice crease that I'm going to line up with the track on my trimmer. And now I'm going to put it up against the top edge here. And I'm going to trim this down. Now that I have a flat edge there, I can go ahead and put that up against the top of the trimmer to act as my guide. And I'll be cutting this at 1 3/4. And then finally, my last measurement here is at 5 inches. So these are the 3 pieces that I cut from the envelope. I'll summarize the sizes for you, and then they're also on the blog. So all of them are 5 inches across. This biggest one from the front of the envelope is 3 3/4 inches high. The one from the back of the envelope is 3 1/4, and then the one from the flap is 1 3/4. I'm going to do a little bit of stamping on my panel, and I've got the foam mat from my Stamparatus just to give it a little extra cushion. I like to do that when I'm using the clear photopolymer stamps. I want my panel to say just a note of, and then the word hope from the banner. And I'm choosing to place mine off center here. Here's the stamp from the kit with the sentiment that I want. It says just a note of hope, but I don't want to stamp the word hope from the stamp because I'm going to be using that same word on the banner. So I'm going to mask this off, and I'm using a piece of washi tape, but you can also use a Post-it or other sticky note. And I'm just covering up that word hope. and then I'll ink it up with the Blackberry Bliss ink. So when I go to ink it up, that word hope was covered so it doesn't get any ink on it. Now this is important to remember to remove the washi tape before you go to stamp. And I'm going to put it right about here. I'm going to do a little more decorating with the stamps here. I want the flower kind of in the corner here, so I'm going to hover it over where my hope banner is. Then I'll move that out of the way and go ahead and stamp on down. So it's going to look like this. And then I think I want another flower here down in this corner. So this time I'm turning it this way, but same thing, I'm going to hover it over this banner to where I want it, move this out of the way, and go ahead and stamp down. I got a little ink smudge there, but I'm just going to cover up with one of the pretty sequins from the kids, so I'm not worried about that. Got some scrap paper, and I'm going to use these little dots that are part of the stamp set. I'm going to stamp first onto the scrap paper so that there's only a little bit of ink left. And I want to add some of these down here in this corner, like that. And that's called second generation stamping. It's going to give you a lighter, more subtle image. I'm happy with how that looks, so I will go ahead and glue that down. And then I'm ready to start assembling the card. So here's my shorter piece, and this side is the side that has the tab sort of pointing away, like this. This is going to be part of the front of the card, and I'm going to be using this panel. This is the one that we cut from the back of the envelope, the one that's 5 by 3 1/4. This is going to go like this. So I'll go ahead and put Stampin' Seal on it. When I go to place it, I want to try to get a pretty even margin between this side, the top, and then the other side. It's not going to be tall enough to reach the whole way because we cut this from the back of the envelope, which is shorter than the front of the envelope, but that won't matter for the final design. So again, here's my flap, and now this is centered horizontally, and there's about the same gap between the sides and the top where this crease is. And now I'm going to turn it around and decorate the other side. And we'll be using these pieces. Let's bring in our other piece, the one that's got the 2 score lines, and we're going to decorate this bottom panel here using the piece that had come from the flap of the envelope. So this is the one that's 5 by 1 3/4. So this is part of the front of the card. I'm going to turn it over and we'll decorate the inside. I'm going to use this last piece from the envelope. It's 5 by 3 3/4. Now I'm ready to put these two pieces together. They're going to come together like this, right at these tabs, and then our die cut is going to get sandwiched in between. So let's go ahead and first put the adhesive on. You've got several choices here. You can use the Stampin' Seal tape runner or the Tear and Tape double-sided adhesive. I'm going to use glue so that it gives me a little bit of extra time to move things around and adjust them if I need to. I want to make sure that I'm getting glue right along this crease and also right up at the top. And then I'll fill in some extra. Now I'm going to flip this down. I'm going to bring in my die cut and I want to position it so that it fits over this middle panel. I don't want it to cross over this crease because then it's going to get messed up when the card is folded. So I'm going to lay it down like this. And again, just double checking to make sure that it doesn't cross over that. Then I'll put this piece right next to it. I'll put a little bit of glue on here too. Along the crease and along the top. I'm just using my bone folder here to really make sure that I get a good seal on this. Once I've given the glue a chance to set, I will go ahead and fold the card and double check. Make sure everything fits in nicely. And I'm also going to go ahead and burnish this bottom edge. This is where the flaps came together. And I just want to make sure that there's a good seal. Here's what we have so far. You open this flap, and then this panel, the die cut pops up, and you see the decorated panel. On this side, there's room for you to write your message, and you want to make sure that you're orienting it the correct way when you're writing so that this flap is towards the base, and then this is towards the top. So don't write your message upside down because this part flips over and becomes the base of the easel, just like this. Now, since it's an easel card, we need something right here to act as a stopper so that this doesn't keep sliding forward. And I'm going to use a butterfly for that. So I'm just going to put a dimensional here and put it in place. So here I have the butterfly and I've put a dimensional behind its right side here. I'll go ahead and put it down and just test it. That works really nicely. Now I'll go ahead and close it. And then I'm going to bring in this piece and I'll attach it with dimensionals down here so that it acts as a little bit of a latch to keep the card closed. Here's my banner piece. I've got 4 dimensionals back here to support that fishtail and also to make sure that it's elevated enough to act as a latch. So I'm sort of centering it horizontally. That's a little bit too high. It's going to be hard to open. So let me scoot it down a little bit further. I want to make sure that this just barely catches so that it's still easy to open. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So there's our completed card. It opens to reveal the beautiful pop-up inside, and it will stand up on its own for display. If you're interested in Paper Pumpkin and don't have a demonstrator yet, I would love for you to subscribe with me. You can find that information in the description box below. I hope that you've enjoyed this dose of creativity and that you'll join me the next time. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.